Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode here on Dangerous African Confessions HD. In this episode, we have this conversation from our sister, who talked to us about the fact that her own pastor had her used her witchcraft spirit to aid him in ministering in his church, under the pretense of receiving divine messages from the Lord. In order to know how it happened and what even happened to our sister, let us now go into today's video and listen to what our sister has for us. Please subscribe if you haven't done so, and also do like and share this video, so others out there can also benefit from this conversation, and hit the notification bell as well, so you will be notified anytime we upload videos.
I wish I could say that my childhood was filled with laughter and light, that it was simple and carefree. But the truth is, my early years were filled with shadows that I couldn't see at the time, but always seemed to follow me. I didn't know it then, but they were the beginning of a story that would define me forever. My father was a good man, strong and reliable. He worked tirelessly on our small farm, waking before dawn and returning home only when the sky had darkened. He loved my mother deeply. I could see it in the way he looked at her, but there was always something else in his eyes, a sadness that he tried so hard to hide. My mother, on the other hand, was the heart of our home. She had this quiet strength, a way of making our house feel warm and safe, even when things weren't going well. But life isn't always kind to people like my parents. There are times when the world just doesn't give you a break. And I remember the exact day when everything began to change. I was 12 when my father fell ill. It started slowly, a cough that wouldn't go away, a fever that came and went without warning. My mother, ever the optimist, tried to reassure us. "It's just a cold," she would say, "he'll be fine." But he wasn't fine. The sickness took hold of him quickly, and before long, he was bedridden, unable to tend to the farm, unable to even care for himself. I watched as my mother tried to do it all, working the land, caring for my father, keeping the house in order. It was as if the weight of the world had fallen on her shoulders, and I could see it breaking her. I had never seen her so tired, so defeated. She used to be the one who had all the answers, the one who told us to be brave. But now, it was as if the spark had gone out of her, and I couldn't do anything to help. My father's illness dragged on for months, and despite the doctor's visits, the herbs and remedies, there was no sign of improvement. In the end, it wasn't the sickness that took him, but the despair in my mother's eyes. I knew she was slowly losing him, and with him, a piece of herself. My father passed away one cold morning. It felt wrong, like the world was moving on without him. I was too young to understand the full weight of loss, but I could feel it, heavy in my chest. My mother seemed to shrink in the days that followed, as if his death had hollowed her out, leaving her fragile and broken. I tried to hold it together for her, but inside, I was falling apart. After my father died, nothing felt the same. The farm became too much for my mother to handle alone. The fields grew wild, the house grew quiet. There were days when she wouldn't leave her room, and I would sit by her door, afraid to disturb her. It was then that I learned how deep the pain of loss could go, the kind of pain that made everything else fade into the background. But the hardest part wasn't the loss of my father. It was the way my mother changed after he was gone. She became distant, withdrawn, like she was there physically but not emotionally. I could see the emptiness in her eyes, a hollowness that no one could fill. She never spoke about my father, never allowed us to grieve together. It was as if she was trying to protect us, but in doing so, she pushed us further away. I remember one night, when I was 14, standing in the kitchen, watching her as she stared out the window. She didn't even seem to notice me standing there. It was as if she had already given up on life. That night, I heard her crying, quietly, in the dark. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to hold her, to tell her it would be okay, but I couldn't even reach her anymore. I was just a child. And she was lost. I never understood why she pushed me away. All I wanted was to feel like a daughter again, to feel like I still mattered. But it felt as though my mother had lost herself, and in the process, she had lost me too. But in those early years, I never questioned the world around me. I believed everything was as it should be, simple and true. But as I was saying before this, there were moments, though, when I felt different. Not in a way that others could see, but in ways that made my heart race with confusion. Strange things would happen when I was alone. What happened was that, sometimes, a soft breeze would sweep through the room, and I would feel an inexplicable sense of calm or unease. I didn't understand it, and I told no one. It was my secret, something I couldn't explain. I thought it was just my imagination, something that would fade with age. But it didn't. As I grew older, my relationship with my mother began to shift even more. I remember asking her once about the way I felt, how sometimes I would experience things I couldn't explain, feelings of déjà vu, vivid dreams that seemed to come true, and the strange pull of something far beyond my understanding. She never spoke much about it. Instead, her eyes would darken, and she would tell me to pray for clarity and the Lord will guide me. Honestly, I knew she was trying to protect me from something, but I couldn't understand what it was. I began to feel more and more out of place in my own life. I didn't want to be like the others, they were so content, so sure of their place in the world. I felt restless, as though there was a part of me hidden away, waiting to break free. I started to have vivid dreams, dreams where I could see things that hadn't happened yet, or hear voices that weren't mine. I couldn't explain it, but I knew something was changing inside me. You see, that was the day when Prophet Michael first noticed me. I had been attending church with my family for years, but it wasn't until I turned around my 20s that Prophet Michael took a particular interest in me. He was a charismatic man, full of energy, with a deep conviction that inspired everyone in the church. The thing is that it all started when one day, after a service, he asked me to stay behind. He spoke of visions, of prophecies, and of healing. He said he saw something in me, something special. I was confused, but flattered. I had never been one to stand out, and the attention was both flattering and overwhelming. He told me that the Lord had given me a gift of prophecy, and that I was meant to help others. I didn't realize it at the time, but Prophet Michael wasn't just offering faith, he was offering something else. Something that would change me forever. I will say that, he saw me, really saw me, in a way no one else had. When I was with him, I felt like I mattered, like I was important. He promised me that through him, I could find healing. He told me that my pain was not my burden alone, that there is a greater power upon my life that I will have to use to help others. I was so lost, so desperate for something to fill the aching hole inside of me, that I began to believe everything he told me. At first, it was small things. He would ask me to pray for someone, to offer them comfort. And when the words I spoke seemed to bring them peace, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe there was more to me than I thought. Maybe this was what I had been searching for. But soon, the visions came. They were subtle at first, flashes of images in my mind, fragments of conversations that I had never heard before. I didn't know what to make of them, but he encouraged me. He said that I was becoming a vessel, that the power I felt was a gift from God. I wanted so badly to believe him, to trust that this was the answer to everything I had been missing. The more I relied on him, the more I began to lose myself. My connection to the church deepened, and soon I couldn't tell where my thoughts ended and his began. He told me that I was chosen, that the miracles I performed were proof of God's hand in my life. And for the first time in years, I felt seen, not as the lost, broken girl I had become, but as someone special, someone with a purpose. But even then, deep inside, I still wondered where the power really came from. It didn't take long for the prophet to become more than just a guide to me. In the beginning, I saw him as someone who could help me, someone who might lead me to find the peace I was desperately searching for. But slowly, as time passed, he became more than that. He became the center of my world. His words, his touch, his presence all began to pull me in, like a moth to a flame, until I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. He had this way of making me feel important. It was as if everything I had gone through, the loss of my father, the distance from my mother, was all part of a grand plan. A plan that he had been sent to help me fulfill. He told me that I was special, that the powers I had were a gift, one that I could use to heal the world. But there was always this shadow in the way he spoke, this quiet insistence that I had to trust him completely. He told me that my gift wasn't just about helping people in the moment, it was about seeing things no one else could. He spoke of visions, of words whispered by a divine spirit, of messages that needed to be shared. I wanted so badly to believe him. I wanted to believe that there was a higher purpose to the strange occurrences I'd been experiencing, that these visions, these dreams, were a way to make up for everything I had lost. He started by asking me to pray for specific people. At first, it was casual, almost like an innocent request. That was when he started to push me more into saying that I should pray for the people who will come to church tomorrow. He would then tell me that God will show me what they need. So, I will sit quietly, my eyes closed, my hands trembling, and wait for something to come to me. At first, it was nothing. I would see flashes, small fragments of scenes that didn't make sense. But Pastor Elijah would encourage me, telling me that it was just the beginning. And would tell me that he is there to train me to be perfect. He always said that the gift I had needed time to grow, and so I should trust the process. I didn't know then that I was being groomed, manipulated. I thought I was part of something important, part of a higher calling. The more I participated, the more the visions became vivid. The more real they felt. I began to see faces, strangers who had never walked into the church, people I had never met. I would describe them to the prophet, and he would nod, as though everything I was saying was exactly what he needed to hear. Let me say this. It wasn't long before the rituals began. The first ritual was simple enough. Prophet would ask me to stay after the evening services, when the church was quiet, and the night was still. He would tell me to sit in front of the altar, close my eyes, and focus on my breathing. He would instruct me to let go of all doubts. And that I am there for a reason. And so, I did. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let the weight of the world fall away. And then, I would see it. The room would shift. The air would grow thick, like a heavy fog, and suddenly, I would feel a presence around me, an unseen force that seemed to guide my thoughts. Sometimes, the walls would shimmer, like a veil was being lifted. Other times, I would hear whispers, faint and distant, calling me forward. It was always the same feeling, the sensation of being pulled into something larger, something that didn't belong to me, but that I couldn't escape. At first, the visions were unclear. A person standing in a doorway, a woman with dark eyes, a child playing in the rain. But as time went on, he began to refine the ritual. He started to give me instructions. He will ask me to focus on the people who will come tomorrow. I would sit in that quiet space for hours, my body frozen, while images danced behind my eyelids, faces, names, even small details like the clothes they were wearing or the words they would say. One night, as I sat in front of the altar, I saw a man, a stranger, walking toward the church. He looked lost, confused, like he was searching for something. I saw the weight of his sorrow in his eyes, the burden of a life he couldn't escape. I could feel his pain, his desperation, as though it were my own. And then, suddenly, the man's name appeared in my mind. His story, his struggles, were unfolding before me in vivid detail, like I was reading his life from a book. I knew that he had lost someone close to him, and that he was desperate for guidance. When the ritual ended, I opened my eyes, shaking and breathless, and Prophet Michael was there, standing over me, his expression soft but knowing. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, waiting for me to speak. So, I told him everything that I saw and he seemed so happy. And told me that is the purpose of my life. To reveal to him things that are going to happen so he can do the necessary directions for them to be healed. I wanted so badly to believe him. To believe that everything I saw was for good. That I was meant to help people, to be a vessel for something greater. But as the days passed, I began to feel something else, something darker, something that whispered that I wasn't in control. The more I saw, the more I became aware of the manipulation around me. The way he seemed to know exactly what I would see, what I would say. The way he would encourage me, slowly but surely, to give more and more of myself to these rituals. You see, I began to unravel so many things. After which came the last step, the one I had feared but didn't want to admit. The final ritual that would seal my fate. He led me into a dark room, lit only by a single candle. He told me to kneel before him, to open myself to whatever would come. He placed his hand on my forehead and whispered words I couldn't understand, words that felt like they were being spoken into my soul. It felt like an ancient power, a force beyond this world, was flooding into me, filling the empty spaces I had long tried to ignore. He told me that I am a vessel. That I carry the weight of many lives inside me now. And it is my duty to share these gifts with the world. To heal. To help. But first, I must trust me completely. I wanted to resist. But I couldn't. The power was too strong, too overwhelming. And in that moment, I thought, this is why I've been chosen. I thought that this was the answer to everything I had lost. I didn't see it then, but I was already lost to him, already trapped in a web of manipulation that I couldn't escape. The pastor's influence over me had grown so strong that I began to lose sight of everything else, the life I had left behind, the memories of my father, even the guilt that had once gnawed at my soul. I was becoming part of something larger than myself, a part of his mission, and it felt like I had no choice but to follow. What did seal what he wanted to get or do with me was that it wasn't just me he had his eyes on. It wasn't long before he saw an opportunity to solidify his hold on both me and my mother. I think he knew that the moment he had my trust, it would be easy to pull my mother into his web as well. She was lost, after all. She had never truly recovered from my father's death. She lived in the shadow of his absence, trying to hold everything together, while the weight of life's burdens crushed her spirit. She didn't have the energy or will to fight back, and the pastor knew it. I remember one Sunday after service, when he took my mother aside. They stood together near the church entrance, just out of earshot from the rest of the congregation. I watched from a distance, not knowing then that this moment would change everything. He had always been warm toward my mother. He would check on her after every service, make sure she was okay, offer her words of encouragement. But now, his concern seemed different, almost too sincere. He spoke to her as though he were her confidant, her protector. That was when he promised to help my mother through all her troubles and that, for such a gift that I have, I should come and live with him in his house. So that he can monitor my development. That was when he promised my mother some upkeep money at the end of every month to help her in her doings. For the first time in a long while, my mother looked relieved. Prophet made it sound so easy. He made her feel as though she had been carrying the weight of the world alone, and now, finally, someone was here to help lift it off her shoulders. It was tempting. I could see it in her eyes, the sense of hope that had been long absent. She was weary. So weary. In the end, my mother agreed. I didn't know it at the time, but I was already losing her, too. The pastor had played her weakness, her need for stability, and he had won her trust.
Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. To anyone who places their trust completely in a prophet or spiritual leader, I want to share something from the depths of my heart. The basics of your spiritual journey is in your own hands. Learn to trust your instincts and learn to hear from your Creator and Father in heaven yourself. You cannot put your life and trust into the hands of someone you don't know their true intentions. Faith is a powerful thing. It gives us hope, direction, and the strength to overcome even the darkest times. But it's important to remember that faith should never blind us to the reality of the human nature we all carry, even those we admire and look to for guidance. Prophets and spiritual leaders are humans. They may be vessels of divine inspiration, but they also have their flaws, their struggles, and their secrets. Never forget that we all are imperfect beings, regardless of the titles we hold or the image we project to others. Even the ones who stand at the pulpit, who speak words of wisdom, may falter and live lives we cannot see. The power of faith is in knowing that it is okay to question, to seek the truth, and to not allow anyone, no matter how revered, to take control of your own spiritual journey. If you are still going to trust your leader or pastor, then it is equally important to keep your eyes open and your heart grounded. Ask questions when something doesn't feel right. Listen to your intuition. Don't ignore the small, quiet whispers inside you that tell you something isn't adding up. You have the right to protect your peace and your soul. Trust isn't blind loyalty, it's the act of following someone because their actions, their words, and their life align with what they preach. When those things begin to diverge, when you witness something that makes you uncomfortable, don't silence your own voice for the sake of loyalty or fear. Your spiritual health, your peace of mind, and your understanding of who you are is too important to be compromised by anyone's image or reputation. And remember, you are not alone. If you feel lost or confused, there are always others who share similar feelings. It's okay to seek support. It's okay to step back, reflect, and decide if this is the right path for you. Finally, protect your integrity. Your relationship with your faith should be personal, direct, and real. Don't let someone else's journey overshadow your own. You are worthy of clarity, truth, and the opportunity to grow spiritually in your own way, with or without the guidance of others. It's not easy to face the truth, especially when it challenges the things we've believed in for so long. But always remember, the truth, though difficult, will set you free. It will help you grow and find your path forward, with strength and clarity. Trust in yourself first, and always remember that faith, in its truest form, is meant to elevate you, not break you. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.